Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hmm. Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Mappy. Hi, anyone else who is here. So what I'm going to show you guys is how to deploy a Heroku app. I'm just going to use the app we did yesterday as an example. Let me pull it up here. Okay. Okay, so we have our hot restaurant. I'm just going to make a copy of this to a new folder, so it will be outside of the full stack lesson plans Git repository. So I'm going to do this. Go into here. Okay, so now when I go to my home directory, don't see it. Wait, actually, I'm sorry. I'm showing you guys the wrong thing. Let's make the GitHub repository first, since this is how we will do it in our projects. Hi, Sam. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, and that you guys will do for all of your homework projects, all of the projects you will deploy to Heroku, we're going to go to GitHub first, just as you do with all of your other projects. You make the repository on GitHub first, and then you move the files into it. So we're just going to call this reservation app repository. Okay, and then I'm just going to clone it. So I just cloned the new repo I just made. It's going to warn me that I cloned an empty repository, so I cd into it. Then See if this works. Okay, so I do have to use the recursive. Okay, so I just copied pretty much everything out of that directory, I think. Okay, but I want mine to be the solved. So I'm just going to go ahead and move everything from solved. To dot slash. Yeah, I can't move things recursively. Okay, so I just moved everything out of solved. We have our server.js. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and do the Heroku create. This creates the project on Heroku. It'll add the Git origin of Heroku. So we'll be attached to another decentralized repository on Heroku, as well as the decentralized repository on GitHub. Gives me a nice name here, Sheltered Shelf. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this code. I'm going to open it up in TextMate. Okay, and we can see that the port is using this process.env.port code, which is important for Heroku. This allows Heroku to set the port to whatever it wants it to through an environment variable, or if that environment variable isn't there, then we're just going to set it to port 8080 as a default. Yes, Sam, I can touch on the git ignore file as well. And happy Earth Day. So we have pretty much everything we need here now to deploy to Heroku. So I'm just going to go ahead and type git push Heroku master. Heroku is the origin and master is the branch. So let's see. I'm just going to look at the documentation real quick. Sorry. Okay. Could it be that I'm not logged in? I think I am. Okay, it's asking for my email. Okay, so now I'm logged in. Let's try this one more time. Oh, so sorry, I have to add all of the files and commit first. That's what I was missing. So I'm just going to do git add star, git commit -m, add files. And now we're ready to push. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and navigate to this URL in our browser, and hopefully it should work. And here we are. We can see that our application is working. So I told you guys that the Heroku process was pretty easy, and now you can see this is really all there is to it. Any questions on that from anybody? Okay, no. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the git ignore and some other things. The main use of git ignore is for the node modules directory. Basically, Heroku likes to install the node modules directory itself. And the way that it does that is through an install script. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm just going to go to the page that I sent out to you guys that gives all of the good instructions for Heroku. Goes to this in general. Okay, let me show you that mapping now, actually. So if we go to Heroku.com, we can see the dashboard that manages all of our apps. I don't know what that is. So I'm just going to log in here. Okay, and then Shelter Shelf was the one that I just got. So if you want to change the app name, you should be able to just change it right in here somewhere. So we can do new. Just gonna Google for this. I know there's a way to do it because I've done it before. It should save your login info, Adrian. So it should work in any directory. Once you've logged in once, it should save your login info. Okay, so we are going to just look for this answer. Okay, so the answer is that you do it from the command line. So if I wanted to call this like my cool app, I would just do this. Okay, so if I do like my cool app 9,999 key. Okay, so then when we go back to our Heroku dashboard, all right, because that URL is no longer there. And now we can see that my name that I made up is the name of the app. And then if we go to run it, we'll see the same thing. So I would change this to my cool app 9,999. And there it is. Okay, so let's talk about some of Heroku's recommendations that I sent out earlier. Okay, So this is a really good article, actually, that explains a lot about how to be a good node developer. So start all of your projects with npm init. This will automatically add the package.json file. I think we've talked about that in class. Then declare all of your dependencies in the package.json file. You can do this by using the -- save flag. We've talked about that in class too. Then you're going to specify a start script that allows your app to start on the command line with npm start. So say we're starting our app with that, we would just add this in a start script, and that way Heroku can start it with npm start. Then they're encouraging you to use tests. We haven't covered unit tests that much in class, but Mocha is a unit testing framework that they're using here. Writing test-driven code is a really good way to write code in a clean, maintainable way. So that's something that's worth looking into. So now here's what you were asking about, Sam. Keep dependencies out of source control. Many Node apps use npm modules with C dependencies like bison, binary JSON, WebSockets, and Hi Redis, which is another database caching layer. So if you try to move compiled binaries from your server to the Heroku server without compiling them on Heroku, there could be all kinds of problems that it will cause. So Heroku caches all of the dependencies and then reinstalls them for you every time. So the way that we would do this is that we would add the node modules to the git ignore file by running this bit of code, which will just put node modules into our git ignore file, like so. Then it's telling us, so let's take a look at how this would work. So let's commit the git ignore. Okay, and then we're just gonna git add star. Hold on. Okay, so I just added git ignore. Let's see if I commit, if it will let me do that. Okay, now it seems to be working. Okay, good. So now if I do another push to Heroku, it should do it without the, so let's try pushing to GitHub first so we can actually see what it's doing. So I'm going to put git push, and then the next two parameters that it takes are the origin and the branch. So I'm going to put origin for GitHub and then master. Now, when we go to GitHub, we can see that the node dependencies, the node modules directory is not included. But when we push to Heroku, if I do git push Heroku master, if I do git push Heroku master, then Heroku automatically installs all of the dependencies for me in the node modules directory, opposed to me uploading the whole node modules directory every time. Does that make sense, Sam? Okay, so let's just quickly go over all of the other things in this file, and then we can go. So it's telling us to use environment variables to configure NPM. So there may be differences in the environments between our production server and the development server we're using on our laptops to test. So we can set these different environment variables, which comes in handy sometimes. If we have things that are going to be different on our development server than on our production server, we can do things differently. Next thing they're saying to use is use your own NPM registry. Sometimes NPM gets slow because so many people use it. Also, it costs a lot of money if you want to add your own NPM packages. So they recommend here some alternatives to NPM, such as Nodejitsu or GemFury. And then Mozilla also has an open source one as well. And then there's this European one here. And you can configure that by using this code here. Next, keep track of your outdated dependencies. Don't use software that is already out of date. Keep track of what is still up to date. NPM, it says here, has a little known command called outdated. Combined with NPM update, it's a great tool for figuring out what your dependencies are. So here I can run, I haven't actually run NPM install yet, but if I do NPM install, it will just install all of the dependencies. And then I can do NPM update, and it will tell me anything is out of date. So it's telling me an update is available for NPM itself. I thought I updated it recently, so I could update NPM itself. It also added 7 packages. There's a newer version of Express. There's a newer version of Body Parser. And then I could try using this command they're recommending here, NPM outdated. It doesn't look like anything is outdated now. So now it's telling us to use NPM scripts to run custom builds. This might be a little bit advanced for us. This is talking about using things called grunt and gulp, which are what are called task runners. Basically, what they do is they compile our less. You guys learned about less and Sass. They compile the less and Sass into being CSS. You can also use them for all kinds of other tasks. If you're using a templating language called Jade, they can help with that too. So we'll learn about these more as we go on. The next thing they're recommending is just try new things. If there are new things that you can do with ES6, like arrow functions that we've been learning about, like using const and let, go ahead and try these new things is what they're recommending. Go ahead and try ES6. It's saying it has many new features. We can go look at the new features here. So this page basically gives you all of the new features. We won't get into that now, but there's block scoping, which we've talked about in class before. It's more like Python and several other languages. In fact, most other languages are block scoped instead of function scoped. So now using let and const, you can mimic the block scoping functionality of other languages. They're generators, they're proxies, they're what are called weak maps, all kinds of fun things that you can go learn about. And then number 11 of this 10-step process is Browserify. Browserify is a tool that converts ES6 back to JavaScript 4, so that way it's backwards compatible so that you can run it in your browser, and you can also configure what kinds of languages you want to compile. If you want to use a different dialect of JavaScript, like CoffeeScript, you can do that as well. We're going to use it when we get into working with React, because React uses something called JSX, which requires Browserify. Now there's something else called Webpack, which has largely replaced Browserify, but we can get into talking about that later when we start learning about React. But this is still a good resource to read through that'll sort of get you up to speed on all of the things people are doing. Although some of these steps do seem a little bit tedious, I think. Any questions on this, anybody? Questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it then. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And I'll make this link available so you guys can watch it later as well. Thanks, guys.